Hi, I'm Bill. I'm addicted to notes apps. Hi, Bill.
Hey there, welcome to Basic AF. This is episode 73. Show notes for this episode can be found at basicafshow.com/73. Hey everybody, how's it going? I'm Tom Anderson, and I am joined this week, or this episode, by Bill McLean. Bill, how's it going?
It's going good. I appreciate you guys having me back.
Yeah, welcome back. This is third? Is this your third time?
Second time.
Second time?
I
Okay.
must have given some sort of impression that it was a good idea to do this again from the first time.
Well, you did, and we reference you frequently in the show. Like, we'll say, oh, yeah, Bill's working on that, or he mentioned that or something. So it's good to reconnect. I know we talk on Threads a good bit, too. So, and some of you may be wondering, where's that other guy? And he'll be back. He's taking a break. So quick update there for that. If you may have seen something on social about it, but as we sat down to record the episode a couple of weeks ago that ended up being the Rewind episode, the Tips and Tricks show, Jeff wasn't feeling well and ended up, he had a stroke at that point, which is awful. And but the good news is he is in. So he went to the hospital, he's recovering now, and he is actually making really good progress. His spirits are high. He's in rehab for hopefully just a few more weeks to kind of bounce back from that, but sending me video updates on a daily basis, which I love. It's great to see him, hear him, and we are chatting and everything on a regular basis. So we anticipate that he will be back in the seat opposite me, hopefully in the next show or two. So we'll see. Obviously his recovery and everything is more important, so he'll focus on that, but he is making progress. His family did set up a GoFundMe to help because he's out of work now, obviously, while he's working through this. And so if you would like to contribute to that, we'll put the link in the show notes for that. And any amount is appreciated, of course. So Jeff, love you, brother, and excited to have you back as soon as possible for this.
We wish you well. We need your sense of humor here to lighten up the robots.
We certainly do. And I was telling Bill before we started, this is the first episode that we've done that he's not been, on the opposite side. So it's a little odd, but he'll be back, which is exciting. So Bill has returned, and for the episode today, we're going to talk about a couple of different things. I picked up a new iPad Pro last week, and so we're going to do some first impressions on that. And then we're going to talk about Notes apps. We've talked about the Apple Notes app quite a bit here. And Bill, it was on your appearance that you mentioned Forever Notes and got Jeff started down that path, which he absolutely loves it. And that led to Matthias, creator of Forever Notes, joining us for an episode, which was a great discussion as well. But Bill has some thoughts on Notes. Bill might have a bit of a problem with Notes apps. So we're going to talk about all that.
A big problem with Notes apps. I did catch the episode with Matthias. That was great. I loved hearing him be able to come on and talk about the system with you guys. It was really good.
Yeah, that was a fun show, and he was a great guest. And so a few weeks ago, Apple updated some products, as we've talked about. So the M5 chip is out, and they updated the Vision Pro with an M5 chip, which there's no trade-in, Bill. So if anybody's got a Vision Pro first gen with the M2, Apple's not doing a trade-in. So if you want its full price, you probably would get more selling your Vision Pro third party anyway than you would get through a trade-in. Because Apple's trade-ins are
been pretty bad recently. Well,
yeah.
Maybe we'll talk about the phone in a little bit, but with the deals through carriers, at least in the U.S., seems to be the way to go for trade-in if you don't want to deal with Facebook Marketplace and the hassle that is selling things secondhand.
Right. Did you upgrade your phone?
I did not. My wife went from a 14 to a 17 Pro.
Nice. That's a good jump.
and that just came in this week. And I was kind of negative about the design of the 17 Pro online. I'm not too quick to spout my thoughts off in case I'm proven wrong, but since it wasn't my tech, I was actually able to do an unboxing video, because when it's mine, I have zero patience for setting up a camera and trying to film an unboxing. And I had the microphone set up, and I'm like capturing the sounds of tearing the paper off and stuff like people do. And she's sitting there watching me, and I pull it out of the box, and I'm leaving this in the video. And I posted, I said, "Oh, this is bad. I actually like it. Like, it feels good in the hand." She got the dark blue, whatever they're calling that one. It feels really good in the hand. It's slightly heavier than the 16 Pro. But it's still kind of has some weird fussiness with the camera bump to my eye. But they made the back radii slightly more rounded on the sides, so it feels even better in hand than the 16 Pro did, which they from 14 to 15 they kind of rounded the sides a little bit more and went away from that square box design of the 14. Mm-hmm. And I like the way the 16 Pro felt in hand. The 17 feels even better.
Nice. And she's happy with it so far?
Yeah, she's, the other night showing her mom, "Oh, look at the new software. It's got the glass. Some things look a little bit different." And I almost had to walk out of the room, because I'm just like, well, you could have updated the software on your 14 and had iOS 26, and it would have looked the same, and it would have functioned the same. So it's like, bite my tongue a little bit from that standpoint. But yeah, she's been enjoying it, and the cameras was the biggest thing, especially with young daughter. The 14, for whatever reason, was constantly taking blurry pictures of our daughter, and you can't have that. So
no,
the new camera package will help out a lot for her.
Yep, it definitely will. And did she shake her head when you were like, "Hey, I'm going to do an unboxing video"?
No, she was actually
she geek out with you on that.
Yeah, she was like,
"Oh, cool.
what kind of shots do you need?" She's never been a dig right in. As soon as the box comes, I'm throwing it open, pulling it out, and want to set it up. So
right, but me too.
And unboxing videos do really good numbers. Anytime I have managed to do them, they're some of the most viewed shorts that I do, and I'm just like, I can't. This isn't a sustainable business practice for me. I can't keep doing it.
It gets expensive.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great. And my oldest son, he picked up the 17 Pro Max. He got the orange one, and I saw that last weekend, I think it was. He stopped by, and it looks good. He's happy with it. He slapped a case on it, but so far he's digging it too. And then, so they did Vision Pro with the M5 upgrade, a 14-inch MacBook Pro with an M5 chip. No other M5 variants, right? They did not do the M5 Pro or Max. I always get so confused. What are the chip names again?
Yeah, no Pro, no Max,
Pro and Ultra, right?
And Ultra. I guess with the M3 Ultra, they did do the warning of you won't see an Ultra chip every generation,
right?
I guess I don't follow the laptop upgrades as much as you would expect. You shouldn't be updating your laptop every year, but I don't recall the last time they spiked out just a MacBook Pro with a base level chip and not the Pro or the Max chips announced at the same time.
Yeah, I can't remember. I feel like I want to say they did that at one point, and it got weird at one time too, because there was I think it was with the M3 to the M4, and like there was an M3 Ultra, but there wasn't for the M4 for something, and it gets confusing because the names, I think, Ultra Pro Max, and then the phones all have that, and I don't have it in front of me right now, so I'm struggling with it myself. And so there's not an updated 16-inch model yet with the M5 chip. Those are still the higher end M4s, which I'm sure will be coming. And then the MacBook Air did not get upgraded yet. That'll probably be in March, give or take, if they keep to the same timeline that they've used for the last one or two updates for that. which that works out really well for us at work because we've got a stash of MacBook Airs that we need to deploy in January for students coming in, and we'll probably have to order 10 or 20 more, and it gets a little iffy when we have a batch that's M4 and then there's some that are M5, because then it's like, well, 5 is higher, so it has to be better, right? Why don't I get that one? And so we have to deal with that. But so no update there. But back to the star of the show for me anyway, the iPad Pro was updated to the M5 chip. Same design, not really any design changes there. Bill, which iPad are you using these days?
I have the 11-inch M4 iPad Pro.
Okay, so you're used to the super thin design of that family, yeah.
Very thin, but I pretty much keep it attached to the Magic Keyboard all the time. It's pretty rare, actually, that I detach it, but when I do, I really enjoy the experience. I was using it a few weeks ago on the couch without the keyboard, just kind of tapping around through apps and stuff, and the weight reduction and the thinness of it really did make a big difference from the previous gens.
Yeah, it really did. Like I have the M2. That's what I'm upgrading from. And to be honest, did I really need to upgrade? Not really. I mean, the M2 is still a great iPad. And I'll tell you why, what kind of pushed me over the edge to upgrade. But it really is remarkably thin. And especially, and I don't know if it's because of, the size of the 13 really showcases just how thin it is because it's bigger. And my wife saw it and she was like, yeah, I'd be nervous using that. I'm pretty sure I'd bend it. But it's really great. And this is going to sound stupid, but what kind of pushed me to want to upgrade is the Magic Keyboard. And this is, I wish, and we, I'm sure Apple has their reasons, but I wish I could have just gotten the new keyboard and I would have kept the iPad that I had. But I kept seeing reviews and people posting just how much better the current Magic Keyboard is versus the first gen, which is what I have. And in particularly the trackpad.
I know exactly where you're going with this.
I've always kind of despised that trackpad on the first one, because when it came out, we were just thrilled to have proper pointer support. And we were like, this is great. And then after a while, you get so tired. It's so loud.
It is extremely loud.
Yeah, and it's a little tight if you're trying to drag files around and everything. And so that kind of pushed me over too. So first impressions of the keyboard is it's great. You like yours too?
Yeah, I had the first gen Magic Keyboard with an iPad Air. It was the iPad Air 4th gen that had support for the first gen Magic Keyboard. I'm going to get confused on all this at some point. And yeah, I used that on the couch. I wrote a ton of YouTube videos on the original Magic Keyboard. Even though it was kind of compact and cramped at the 11-inch, I was able to type pretty quickly on it and smoothly, I guess. But that original trackpad was I'd compare it to an old Windows laptop trackpad in terms of how it clicks. It didn't have I think they're still calling it the haptic engine. I don't know. I'll call it the haptic engine. It's not actually a physical button anymore on the new generation. You just get the little vibration pulse, which makes things so much easier, and the area that you have to swipe around in is bigger as well.
Right. Yeah, it is much improved. Sometimes you see the videos of people, first impressions and reviews, and you kind of question, is it really, they're just typing it up for the review or whatever. But this one is legitimately almost better in every way that I've seen so far. It's got the function row across the top, just feels better. It still has the rubbery texture on the bottom and the back, but it's got the aluminum on top. So right now I'm digging that. Obviously it's super fast. The iPad is, and that tandem OLED display is beautiful.
Yep. And you said you got the 13-inch?
I did.
And yeah. I poked you on Threads about about the glossy display versus nano texture, and I actually forgot that on the iPad they locked the nano texture to the 1 terabyte level of storage. And I knew they did that on the M4 iPad, which was the exact same reason I didn't go for it. But I guess I would have thought that they would have allowed people to pick nano texture with any storage level at this point, because it's now on MacBooks as well.
Right. Yeah, and I considered it, and they're so expensive. It's like, and so I kept adding things to it, and I was like, man, I don't know about that. And like you said, you had to bump up the storage to get even to qualify to have the option to choose. And then to choose the nano texture was like another $100 or whatever that was. And so I was like, and I wanted to add cellular this time around too, which I've traditionally haven't done. And so I decided just to stick with the 512 gig storage, and I went with the cellular option instead. So
that's probably a good choice. I did put the nano texture on my MacBook Pro, and I'm, depending on where the device is going to live most often, I would do that again. I kind of wish I have the Apple Studio display, and where I'm sitting now, there's a window off to my left, and I wish I had nano texture on this display too, after using the MacBook for so long now.
Right. And how much do you think, or in your experience, is there a big difference, like with the colors and everything with the nano texture versus glossy? Because that's something I was wondering, like the YouTube videos I've watched, it doesn't seem like it's drastic. Like there's a difference, but not a huge difference. Because the only kind of close experience I've had is with the, what was that thing called? It was the AstroPad screen cover for writing, the rock, paper, pencil, I think it was, which isn't quite the same. And it would mute the colors a good bit, because I remember, like, I used that for 3 or 4 or 5 months because I liked the writing experience with it. And then one day I took it off to kind of clean it and everything, and I was like, wow, look at the colors. So I left it off after that. But how's the nano texture with that?
There's, some people will say it's a drastic difference, and it's so bad, but I actually, when I was looking for the laptop, I have the M4 Pro, MacBook Pro, 14-inch. I actually went into the Apple Store to look at a MacBook Air. When they updated the M4 MacBook Air with that light blue color, I was like, oh, cool. I've been wanting to get a MacBook again. I liked my M1 MacBook Air, but I got rid of it when I got my desktop. And the nano texture was what sold me on the MacBook Pro. Looking at all of them side by side, I was like, well, the weight of the laptop isn't all that much different. Obviously, the Air is lighter. It's easier to move around and stuff. But staring at a nano texture versus non-nano texture together in the store, where the brightnesses are all maxed out to, make you buy. I didn't notice that big of a difference, and was actually pretty impressed with how the colors seem to be just as accurate on the nano texture as they were on the glossy screen.
Cool. Yeah, I think Jeff got the nano texture on his studio display, I think. And because he's in his office is, I think there's windows behind him. He says it's annoying to clean, but
it is. I agree with that. It's especially on the laptop, because the stuff from the keys get on it when you close it. But yeah, other than that, it's fine.
All right, cool. So I'll have, I'll keep using this new iPad and see what I think. But so far, first impressions, everything is great. Like, it's like, I remember seeing the M4 upgrades, and everybody was like, yeah, this is really, really fantastic. And they weren't lying. It's really great. It's a great package. Expensive, but it's a great package. So, Bill, would you like to talk to us about Notes apps?
Hi, I'm Bill. I'm addicted to Notes apps. Hi, Bill. Oh, man, I've been on a kick recently. And so last time I came on, we talked about a number of different things. One of them was Apple Notes. And at the time, the Forever Notes framework that you've now all heard about from Matthias coming on the show as well was relatively new to the Apple Notes world, I guess. I've been using it for the better part of, I think I'm on two and a half, going on 3 years on YouTube. Writing any video idea that I have gets written in Apple Notes. Any newsletter was in Apple Notes. Like the whole show was out of Apple Notes. And recently, I won't even say I hate it. I have a love-hate relationship with Notion. Apple Notes, I just love. I love using it. Minus, once you get into some of these more complex projects, it does kind of help to have a database-like structure, which is why I started looking at Notion to begin with. And that's sent me down the rabbit hole of, well, should I just use something like Bear Notes, or, Craft is still over here, and it does a lot of the same things now that Notion does. And so as I sit here and stare at my dock, I see Apple Notes, I see Bear Notes, I see Notion, I see Craft, and Obsidian is somewhere on this computer too. I have some Notes app madness, I guess you could call it.
So let's dig into that a bit. And I'm curious just to see why for you jump around, and then we can compare it to why I do it, because I've had this tendency too, Bill. You're not alone. So obviously Apple Notes is very good. You just alluded to that. We've talked about that a lot. Apple has done a really nice job of updating the capabilities in Apple Notes, and especially when you compare it to some of their other apps that just kind of seem to rot and don't really get much over time. They just killed the Clips app. If anybody was using that, that's going away. So you three people, it's probably, I wonder if
anybody actually used that or not.
Right. I wonder if they're more Clips users or Vision Pro users. I wonder. It's got to be Vision Pro. But they have done a really, really good job of adding capabilities to it. And I think they've done a nice job balancing the features without adding a bunch of complexity to it.
Yep, I agree with that.
Which isn't easy to do either. So they've done well with that. But for me, like, I use Apple Notes here and there, mostly just for shared notes with people because it's simple, because everybody has it. Then I know that's in the Apple ecosystem anyway. But I just don't like how it looks.
Yeah, I also agree there. And interfaces, I'm a pretty visual person. So I think that's one of the things that's at the root of why I ever even get an inkling to switch apps when I have a system in Notes. And I guess I can't talk about Notes without Apple Reminders, because I like my notes and my tasks to be linked together. Mm-hmm. So I have this system that works well between those two things, but inside of Apple Notes, it's really hard to figure out everything that you have going on. And unless you've manually linked those or shared them with into the Reminders app and they appear on your calendar, there's not a great visual way to see, I'm working on a newsletter, I'm writing an article for something else, I have a podcast that I want to record, and I have some video scripts that are all in various stages of being written or recorded or edited. And that's where things now like Notion and even Craft has this, they call it collections, I think. Mm-hmm. Notion's, everybody knows Notion database and all of the different things that you can do inside of Notion. It's more of a giant list of, here's everything that I'm doing right now. I can filter out just the long list of ideas and focus on what are the few active projects that I have, which might only be 4 or 5 things at a time. But when you have a full-time job and a new kid at home, 4 or 5 things at a time is a nightmare to manage.
Might as well be 50.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So I have tried Notion a bit, and I consider myself a nerd and a power user of Notes apps and everything like that. And even for me, it was a lot. Like it was very tempting and very easy to become just a tinkerer of the system with Notion for me, because like you said, it does a lot. It is super customizable. And so I found myself being more of a Notion systems designer and engineer than doing actual work.
I agree. And I struggled with that for a while. So I put Notion on the back burner as kind of like I said, well, I set out with this goal of, can I take Apple Notes, Apple Reminders, and Apple Calendar and get the same system that I've been using into a single app? And what could that app be? Notion's kind of the default answer. It has calendar views inside of it. You don't have to use Notion Calendar if you don't want. It can handle tasks if you set them up properly, and it's an okay notes app, I'd say. You know, it is really more of like a database structured program. So I kind of worked on that for an hour a week for a little bit, and then ultimately what ended up pushing me over the edge with Notion to get this system almost fully functional was AI. And ChatGPT and Claude integrate with Notion, and then I got a free trial of Notion's AI. And you can kind of just ask it, well, as long as you know what you want it to do, you can kind of just ask it to, hey, set up this database like this. Like feed it a requirements document, and it will go make the database and the structure however you want. And that's nice. Yeah, there was a few things with tasks specifically. Like I don't love Notion for task management. I don't think it was ever really set up to do it. Although, you know, they have checkboxes and stuff. It's just not as pleasing to check something off in Notion as it is in Apple Reminders, or even I was a long time Todoist user as well. And Todoist has this little bloop sound that it plays when you check something off that's so satisfying to do that you just want to put tasks in there so you can hear it over and over again. So I don't know how many videos I've made now, 3 or 4. Another one came out this morning about Apple Notes and Notion, comparing them. And ultimately, I did get a system set up in Notion that works how I wanted it to. So the requirements that I set out with, the system works. And there are a few downsides, mainly how fast you can get things into Notion versus Apple Notes. I kind of said that backwards, right? Apple Notes is, you have Quick Note everywhere on your phone, on the iPad. You can even just tap with the Apple Pencil on the iPad and start a Quick Note even if the screen is off. And on the Mac, I have Quick Note in the bottom right-hand corner for hot corners. And driving, you know, I'm often listening to podcasts or audiobooks or whatever, driving to and from work. And I won't name her name, but Apple's assistant takes notes for me all the time. So I don't trigger her and she's doing some request. But there are plenty of times where I just need to get something into a notes app. And so I don't forget the idea, and I can come back and flesh out all the other details later. And right now, that's the biggest downside for me for Notion. I would say that outside of that, I think I like the interface better when I'm on a computer.
Yeah. Yeah. How's Notion on mobile these days? Like
awful.
Okay, so it hasn't gotten any better. Great.
I mean, it works, but it's not a mobile first application. It's like you have to click into a page and another page. It would be 3 or 4 clicks to get something in to where I want it to be in my ideas list without. You can set up Apple shortcuts and things like that, but then that gets back to the conversation of like, how much setup am I going to do with this thing? Am I going to constantly be managing the system, or is it ever going to end?
Yeah, so you're straddling Notes and Notion, it sounds like. So Notes for quick capture and Notion for kind of more in-depth development for your projects that you've got going on.
Yeah, and one of the biggest things is I like the feature in Apple Notes. They added collapsible section headers. So you can have titles and headings and subheadings that all collapse now, but there still isn't a table of contents. in Apple Notes. And so I think, if I had to average it out, a YouTube script that I'm writing out is somewhere between 6,000 and 10,000 words before I bullet it down to what I talk about on camera. And it is impossible to scroll through an Apple Note with that much information and find what you need in a way that makes sense. Like when you are writing in 15 to 20 minute spurts and then you leave and you come back an hour and a half later, it's like, okay, where was I? What section did I need to go update? It's the navigation inside of Notes still needs a lot of work, but I can't seem to give it up because it's so fast.
Right. And, it's funny. I started the first kind of notes app that I remember using was Evernote back in 2008. I don't even think there was a notes app other than on the phone because, notes app for Apple, there was no Notepad, which wasn't much. Or was that a Windows thing? I get confused. WinPad, Notepad, I don't know. There were sticky notes, but none of this stuff was really a thing like we have today. So Evernote came out and kind of took the world by storm for note takers because it was like the capture everything, store everything. It was like the original second brain concept. And so I used that from 2008 to, probably 2020, I think. And they kind of lost their way along the way, and the product got a little iffy, and it just wasn't as good as it once was. And you kind of knew that was coming because they started selling like socks and stuff. But so that was my first foray into Notes apps, and like I say, stuck with that for a long, long time. And so that's why I never started with Apple Notes really in depth to any degree. And then I could have in 2020, I guess, gone to Notes because I think Notes actually had an import from Evernote feature and probably still does. And so from there, I saw Craft when it first came out in 2020 and it caught my attention because it was shiny and new, Bill. You know what that's like. And I really liked it. It looks nice. It makes really nice looking documents. It has lots of functionality. And it was the first experience I had had with a writing app that used slash commands. And that was like a life changer for me, like just for being able to quickly add components and formatting and everything like that. And then Craft in 2022, 23, give or take, they were trying to figure out what kind of a business they wanted to be. And they made this push into like enterprise, or they tried to make it's like a Teams app, right, writing app for like a Google Docs challenger. And so I wasn't sure where that was going to go. And then so I found a new shiny, which has been around a while, and you've got this one on your list, which is Bear Notes, which I really liked. It's a beautiful app too. Its minimal interface is really, really nice. How much have you used Bear?
I had, for a period of time, ported all of my newsletters and podcasts over to Bear.
Okay.
So a fair amount over the last 6 to 8 months, because here's kind of this is a silly reason for using Bear, but you've recently started on Substack as well. Mm-hmm. And I haven't figured this out yet. So here we'll talk it out. But the Substack editor kind of does Markdown when you're typing in it. You can use the hash, whatever you call it, hashtag command to get like headers and subheaders. But if you paste a Markdown document into the Substack editor, it loses all the formatting. And so what Bear offered was, for whatever reason, if you import or paste HTML into the Substack editor, all of the formatting is retained.
Oh, it sticks. Okay.
So I was using, Bear has a ton of different export options, and one of them that you can do is you can copy the whole note that you have in as HTML. And so that was why I started writing the newsletters in there. and pasting them in because the formatting for them every week just was something that I didn't want to have to do twice. Now, Notion, for whatever reason, if I write something in Notion and I have headers and subheaders and bullets and copy it out of Notion and paste it into Substack, the formatting is also retained, which is weird because I think under the hood, Notion is basically just a markdown file. But rich text out of Apple Notes, if you format it in Apple Notes in rich text and you copy rich text and paste it into Substack, again, the formatting's all lost. So I don't know what Substack is doing, but I also don't know what all these other Notes apps are doing.
Hence the 4 that we've talked about so far. Yeah, I run into that too. I use Beehive right now for my newsletter, and I do the writing in Craft, and I'll copy and paste it over. And it gets a little weird there too. Like it retains like the bulleting and the headings and everything, but the font, I always have to go in and kind of select everything, and in the Beehive editor, set it to their default font size. It always pastes it in a size smaller. And so when I look at it, I was like, man, that's tiny. But it does retain everything else. And you mentioned Bear being able to export all of the different formats. And so that's something that Evernote was not great at. Because all you would get is the .enex files, I think, maybe HTML. I don't remember at this point. And so I think Apple Notes can now export in Markdown. Is that right? Didn't they just add that?
Yep. So I guess all of them are getting a lot better at data portability.
Yeah, which is great.
Would have been one of my biggest complaints with Apple Notes. Obsidian had created an Apple Notes importer that kind of did the same thing. You had to do it on a Mac desktop for it to have the right permissions to pull all of your Notes files. But yeah, now Apple Notes, you can import or export to Markdown. You can import a Markdown file and it processes it right, or you can export it all to a Markdown file. So it gives me a little bit more peace of mind that I don't lose my 1,000 notes. Because an iCloud server crashes like AWS East.
That was a rough day. Like nothing worked at work. We were like,
yep.
Well, what do we do at work when the tools don't work? Well, we just sit around and talk. But that is an important thing, is to be able to get the notes out. And that's one of the reasons why I was hesitant with Apple Notes prior. Craft is pretty flexible with that. You can do Markdown, text bundle, PDF, Word doc, I think, if you wanted to do that. And I think what's interesting is in our list of apps here that we've got Notes, Bear, Obsidian, Notion, Craft, is just kind of how outside of certain industries, Word has become, ugh. Like it was always gross, but I never liked it. And then, of course, we haven't talked about Google Docs at all either, which a lot of people use that.
A lot of people do.
Yeah, it has great collaboration stuff. We're Google Campus at work, and we use it a lot there for that. But I just haven't seen anything Google makes that looks really good to me. It all looks kind of eh. But functionality-wise, those are pretty good. So what would you say folks should kind of be on the lookout for if they're thinking about, yeah, Notes is good, but some of these other things, seem enticing. Like we've talked about, data portability is key. Luckily, that's almost table stakes this day and age. I think a lot of people have, the Notes companies or Notes app developers have done a commendable job of making that a thing. But what else should people kind of look out for?
I think it's kind of personal, right? But it's what, can I even put it into words? Making your requirements list. I'll use my engineering terms, making your requirements list, because I actually really struggled, but I came up with a few for myself that I wanted Notes apps to be able to do. Like for me, note linking is kind of non-negotiable also in this day and age. The fact that we can now link notes together and you can connect knowledge that you might not have thought would be intertwined. I like to have, like I said already, the notes and tasks somehow be connected. Doesn't necessarily have to be the same app because I do use notes and reminders, but if you could pair your notes and your tasks in one app. That's really good. We talked about data portability, and I like visual things. So I had spent extensive time with Obsidian because I thought the graph view was going to change my life, of seeing all my notes linked together in some sort of graph view. And ultimately, like, it's a cool thing, but I never really used it, except nowadays I'm coming full circle there. I'm like, I need something to be a little more visual than Apple Notes, like a list of notes and folders and files isn't quite enough anymore for me. But if you can get clear on what you actually need out of a notes app, one thing that I did was go ask ChatGPT or whatever AI you want. They can all search the web now. Put your requirements in and be like, what app fits the bill here? And unfortunately, you've seen from our conversation here today that there's a lot of them that fit the bill. And I wrote an article recently on Substack that's called "It's the Worst Time to Pick a Notes App," or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
There's not a worse time to pick a notes app, because they have all gotten to the point where they're all so good. Feature parity, they all pretty much do the same thing. And it's like they'll do 80% of what you need them to do, and the last 20% will be the thing that guides you maybe in one direction or another. It might, where Craft might be a better fit, Notion might be a better fit, something like Apple Notes or Bear Notes might work best for you, depending on your use case, I think.
Yeah, I agree. And it's going to be different for everyone, because if you're 100% in the Apple ecosystem, Notes is perfect. And their note support is available on iCloud.com too, if you need to ever do that from a non-Apple device. But Bear is only Apple. I think they're working on a web version. I think it's in beta testing. Craft has a web version available. Notion is mostly online anyway, so that doesn't matter. I'm not sure about Obsidian. Is that an online thing too, or is that all local?
It's all local.
Okay. And so, that's another one to look at. And there are more. We did not exhaust the list by any means. Like Bill mentioned, it really will, just depend on what you want to do and how complex your documents need to be. If you're just taking simple notes is perfect. It does Apple Pencil support. Bear has Apple Pencil support. Craft has Apple Pencil support. If you like to annotate and sketch things up. Any pencil support for Notion? Can you do sketches and that kind of thing?
No, you can't. That's one of the downfalls. So,
okay.
I'm going to have this system set up in 5 different notes apps for a while, I think. Sitting here staring at Craft, and I have a YouTube folder on Craft with the same collection that's a creative hub of all the things that I'm working on. So it's like, how many places can I put this?
Yeah, and it's funny, like Bear does do the sketches, and I don't know if they've changed it in a recent update, but what kind of frustrated me a little bit with it is you would go in with the pencil to do the sketch, but it would make the sketching area, it wasn't like a full page on the iPad display. It was only really maybe 2/3 of the width. And I just felt like that didn't make any sense because I've got the whole screen and it felt kind of cramped. But otherwise, a good notes app. But you mentioned there, like some of the folders and a list of notes not being enough. So something that I really like with Craft and Notion can do this too. I guess Obsidian can. That's the one I've used the least. Like I hear a lot of people talk about it, and I looked at it and I was like, you know what? I will never do anything but tinker with this. I'm not even going to start.
Good for you. Good for you.
Talk to me again in 3 months.
Yeah.
We'll see how my resolve is. But one of the things I do with Craft a lot is it's got support for subpages. And so you can have a document that has multiple subpages in it. And so for like the content things that I'm working on, so newsletter, podcasts, social posts, and so on, it's all kind of self-contained in this one document, and it's laid out with subpages, and they make it really easy to make it visually pleasing with their card system, and you can put your own images in those as backgrounds, and so it looks really, it almost looks like a web page of your system. And then, of course, with the collections, the databases, and everything. So that's kind of power user stuff, but you can use it simply for just making nice documents as well. So we are in a time of riches of Notes apps, which overall is fantastic, but for dorks like us, Bill, it's a bit of a predicament.
Yeah, and I have subscriptions I have a craft subscription. I paid for Bear for at least the year. I probably won't renew that one at the end of the year, but Craft runs some good promotions throughout the year too. I think when they launched, Readwise support. I can't believe I forgot that. Oh my gosh. Readwise support is like the other thing that I use a Notes app for, taking highlights from books or podcasts or even YouTube videos in the Readwise Reader app and incorporating those into an article or a YouTube video or whatever is just an anecdote or expand upon it. So having Readwise support is maybe the one other must-have thing for a Notes app for me. And when Craft launched their Readwise integration, I can't remember. I think I'm only paying $45 a year for Craft, and that was a forever promotion because of Readwise. So, but they do that from time to time, and it seems like every time they've done a promotion, it's been you get this price forever. It's not we'll give you this really good deal for the first year and then jack up the price on you. They seem like a reasonable group of people.
That always helps.
Yeah.
Yeah. And this past year, they have added a ton of new features, and, they were behind with tags, like they didn't support tagging. I'm not a big user of it, but I know a lot of people do. So they were asking for that. The collections stuff is new, the Readwise integration. And man, we could go on for another hour just about Readwise, but it's because I subscribed to that this past year and tied that into the Snipped podcast app. We talked about that on the podcast when I first subscribed and whether or not I would stick with it, and I have. So we'll probably do a follow-up with that. But what's interesting is with Readwise, they added the chat with your highlights.
Yep.
And that is fantastic. Like that, because it's kind of like it's everything that you've sourced, and it will go out and do web stuff too, but it's really focused on your highlights, and so that's a great way to kind of go back and look at notes you've taken from books or clips from podcasts or newsletters or web pages you've clipped into Reader and everything. So, like I say, that's another at least half-hour discussion, but we won't do that today.
Yeah, I forgot about that one. That's another tangent. So.
Yeah. God help us. All right. Well, I think that's it, unless there's any points we've missed otherwise for Notes.
I don't think so. We'll be here for 3 more hours if we keep going.
Right. Nobody wants that but us. So we can go offline for that one. Well, Bill, tell us where people can find you. So if they want to check out some of your videos in particular, and I know you've got the newsletter, so go ahead and let them know where they can find those.
Yep, youtube.com. I am at Bill McLean, so youtube.com/@Bill McLean for all kinds of videos, Apple products, tech, productivity, app reviews, app of the month. I have a newsletter, billmclean.substack.com, and Threads is probably the most other active social media that I have. I am at William B. McLean on Threads, where you can hear me ramble about stuff that's related and unrelated to all of this.
Yes, lots more notes talk over there. All right, excellent. And we'll put all of those in the show notes. So if you want a quick jump over to any of those, they will be there. So once again, Bill, hey, thanks for hanging out with me today. Appreciate it. Always good to catch up, and I'm sure we'll keep chatting on Threads, and we'll have you back on the show for sure too. So looking forward to that.
Sounds good. I appreciate you having me.
All right. Sounds good. Wrap things up here really quickly. Jeff usually does this, so I'll try not to botch it. Theme music by Psychokinetics. Link for that is also in the show notes. Podcast artwork by the great Random Art and Design. We thank him for that. So hope you enjoyed the show. Until next time, hope you have a great rest of your day or your night.